Good morning and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel from Monday, the 6th of March. I have been thinking a lot about prayer. I pray all the time, like I pray every morning. But during the season of Lent, I try to be a bit more intentional about that, about taking time to pray, about praying in different places, like when I'm driving in the car, turn off the radio and things like that. Or just to take a moment and listen to the sounds around me and listen for the voice of God in the silence or in the wind or in the laughter of the kids next door as they're making snowmen, things like that. But really thinking about prayer in different ways. And I have this little book called Jesus' Little Book of Wisdom: Guidance, Hope, and Comfort for Every Day, compiled by Andrea Kirk Asaf. And there's a passage or a little message here from Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 21, verse 22, that says, "Whatever you ask for in prayer with faith, you will receive." Now, I remember when I was younger, knee high to a grasshopper, I thought that was like, I loved that phrase, that sentence, Matthew 21 verse 22, because I thought that meant that whatever I ask for in prayer, if I have faith, I'll receive it, as if it was like a Santa Claus list or a birthday wish. And as I got older, I began to understand a little bit more that, like my Santa Claus list, because Santa Claus always came to me and was always generous, but Santa didn't always get me what I wanted. As a matter of fact, I think Santa Claus was a little bit hampered because my sister's birthday is the 12th of December. And so it always seemed unfair to me that my sister would ask for something that I had asked for Santa Claus. She would ask for her birthday. And Santa knew that if there was one of them in the house, there didn't need to be two because we could share. And God bless her. She's a wonderful, beautiful woman now, but as a child, she didn't really share much. So I'm still bitter about the Walkman that I asked for Christmas from Santa and Jennifer received from my parents for her birthday, and then she refused to share it with me. And we went all the way up 3 hours to the farm one Christmas with her listening to my Michael Jackson tape on her listening to her Walkman. Still bitter about that, Jen. Not fair. I'm just kidding. I don't need a Walkman anymore. I don't even know if I could find one. Things have changed so much. But I learned as I got older that whatever you ask for in prayer with faith, you will receive. The faith part that was a big codicil there, because in wishing is not in faith. Because if I pray to God in faith, there's some other stuff that goes before it. Before I even open my mouth to utter a request or a desire or a petition in prayer, when I come forward in faith, I need to come forward knowing the foundation of my faith is based on the knowledge that God knows better than I do. I can ask God for something, and I can have all the best intentions for asking, but God knows what will happen more than I do. God knows if I give Rachel X that she's asking for, here are the consequences of this. For instance, when I was younger, I mentioned this before, I was single until I met Rob. I was 32 when I met my husband to be. I didn't know he would be my husband then, but I'd never dated. And I was lonely, and I used to pray, okay, God, like, I would really like to have a family someday, and I would like to, be in a relationship with somebody. And there were over the years, there were people I thought, well, that would be okay, God, if that was the person you meant for me. And had God answered my prayer as a wish list, maybe one of those particular gentlemen would have been the person that I ended up dating and possibly marrying. But looking back now and seeing who they became as adults and who I have become, I realized that we would never have been compatible. Those people who are wonderful, wonderful people and are great husbands and fathers to their own families, I look back now and think they would not have been supportive. They wouldn't have been in their nature to be supportive of me as a priest. That the work that I do, the way that I think, my sense of humor, those things would not have been compatible, and our marriage, had we even gotten that far, would have been miserable. And I don't think that that's what God wanted for me. And so, like, God sort of using that as an example, when I prayed, God, what if, like, I'd like to be married one day and have a family. God answered that prayer in faith, not as a wish list. God knew what I needed, and God knew what Rob needed, and God knew that we needed each other, and He brought us together eventually. Now, maybe things happened that we would have met earlier. I don't know. But life happens, and we came together at the right time. And we are the people who we need to be together to do God's work together. And it's not perfect, and we argue, and he's supportive of my ministry and I'm supportive of his, even though we often don't agree on how we go about doing that. And yet God knew what we needed. God knew how to answer those prayers. So I still do, like anybody, I still come at prayer sometimes from that wish list thing, like, okay, God, this is what I really, 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 really want, and I've been a really good girl all year. Please, please, please. And then I sit back and God's like, oh, you dear child, you precious little soul. If you only knew. And God sort of says, hold my beer. Sit back and watch. Because the plans I have for you are greater than the plans you have for yourself. The plans that God has for me, the plans that God has for this world are so much greater than anything that I could create. So I am learning. I am 51 and I am still learning as I pray that yes, indeed, that if I pray with faith, God will answer that prayer. God will give me what it is I pray for. But God doesn't necessarily give me the exact thing I pray for. God gives me the underlying desire of what I pray for. What I was praying for wasn't necessarily to have that person as in my life. What I was praying for was that I would one day have that relationship that would help me to grow and become a better person. And that in turn I could help others to do the same thing. And that is what God has given me. Over and over again, God answers prayers in ways that I am only beginning to become a little bit mature enough to understand. I look forward to having a long life. I want to live to be 120 because I just have so much I want to do and see and accomplish and experience in life. So I'm going to be 120. There you go. It's out there. I'm letting God know what my prayer is. We'll see how that works. But when the time comes when I meet God face to face, I can look back. I think I will be amazed at the ways that God has answered prayers and the ways that God is helping me mature as I get older and more faithful and understand more what God is calling me to do. The ways indeed that God does answer prayer. And so I encourage you to not quit praying. Pray what is on your heart. And even if it sounds like a wish list, pray that God will do what is right for you. And even if you don't get what you've prayed for specifically, trust that God's on it, that you will find answers to prayer. Even if it doesn't look like yet, it will come. And in hindsight, you'll be able to look back and say, wow, wow, God was great. I maybe not so much, but God was great. So whatever your prayers may be today, pray with faith and expect to see God's answer, because you will. It may not be exactly what you think it might be or should be, but it will be exactly what it should be from God's perspective. So God bless you. Pray hard. Pray often. And join me again tomorrow. God bless everybody.